Hello and welcome back to the fifth Java Intermediate tutorial. Today we'll be talking about exception handling. So if I sound annoyed, this is the third time I've recorded this. Things have gone wrong on my end multiple times. So let's first we have to define what an error is when running a program. So first type of error is compile error. So a compile error is if you miss a semicolon or put a letter in an integer or whatever, something stupid like that. And it won't compile and it won't even run at all. And then there are two types of errors that happen once the program is made and it's running. There's one called a runtime error, and there's another called a logic error. A logic error is like, say in a game when you shoot someone and they fly up into the sky and it makes a graphical glitch. That's logic. Sorry, I'm just checking certain things. That is a logic error. So that means that the program works and it's not crashing, it's not breaking or anything, but it's just not working correctly. And then a runtime error is when there's something actually wrong in the program itself, and then it usually crashes unless the developers do what we're going to talk about today, which is exception handling, which is very important. So an exception is an event that occurs during the execution of a program that disrupts the normal flow of instructions. And that is from the Oracle docs. An exception basically is when something's wrong with the program. So it is a runtime error. So tutorial 05 and exception handling. So exception handling is how to prevent that exception from killing the entire program. So let's go ahead and make com.sshsgd hs.gd.tut05. Alright, so let's go ahead and make a new class, call it main. Give it a static void restring args. So let's make a static object O up here so that it compiles object. And let's go ahead and make a void over here. So private static method. Do excuse background noise. So private print object. This is print object. This is a void. Sorry. And then we're going to go ahead and do object O print or sysout. We're going to do o.toString. Okay, so once we try to call this print object, so let's say we just had a whatever printer object, and then we print out, whatever lorem ipsum. So this lorem ipsum will not be printed because we did not instantiate this object, and there was an error, and the program crashed. So now let's look at this red text. Usually when you see this red text, you would freak out and you'd raise your hand and you're asking me to come over and look at the red text. Now, this red text is actually the most helpful text you can possibly get in a console during the execution of a program, because it tells you exactly what the error is, a null pointer, meaning that the reference to this is null, meaning the reference does not exist, meaning you did not call new, it's uninstantiated. So null pointer exception, and then it tells you where it went wrong. So this bottom one is where it first got called, and then it goes up to trace this stack of where the error went. So this went wrong, so it goes into print object and it looks into here, and then this went wrong. Okay, and then that's where the error was. So it just helps you find exactly where the error was so that you know where to look. And Eclipse has a nice little thing where you can click on it and it goes right to the line number. So let's comment this, and as you can see now the lorem ipsum is called, but we're going to delete that. So how do we prevent that error from stopping the program? That is called a try catch. So an exception is like the object type. This object type is a blanket for all objects. This exception type is a blanket for all exceptions. So as you can see, it was a null pointer exception. That is a subclass of exception, which is also a subclass of object. So everything that object has, exception also has, but everything that every exception has exception. Okay, so let's try this print object again. Print object O, and then here we're just going to sys out there was an error. So now there is an error. There is no red text anymore because it's not even doing anything. You can actually just take this out and then nothing will happen when you get an error. It will just ignore it and move on. So another important thing, if you wanted to do like a lorem, and let's just do sysout ipsu. All right. As you can see, there is an error. It's going to break out of this try catch. So when it sees an error, it's going to completely break out of it, go into catch, and then move on with the program. So keep that in mind. It's a good way if you have like Boolean did right, you know, is true, or did right, and you know, like whatever did right is true here. So, and then did right is false, whatever. So if you want to check if something happened or if it didn't happen, whatever. So lorem ipsum, we can get rid of that lorem text just so you know that that happens. So let's do try. We can actually do a try catch here. We need to make another method. So now you can have a method that you know will always cause a certain type of error. So let's go ahead and make a private static method, make it a void, and let's do print object with throws. So the technical term for when an exception happens, it's called an exception is thrown. Something throws an exception. So throws null pointer exception. Now, because we know that that was the exception we got earlier. So object, this takes in an object, so it's object O. Okay, and then sysout o.toString. So print object with throws. So now when we do print object with throws, sometimes you get an error, sometimes you don't. I'm not sure why I'm not getting errors, but sometimes you really have to. So you can actually try to try catch. So it knows that a null pointer exception can happen when calling this print object with throws because it has this. So let's go ahead. Now that we specified which type of exception it is, we can actually know exactly what the error was and have a more meaningful error message. So the object was not initialized. So now when the programmer is running this and they see, oh, the object's, oh, okay, so we do whatever, object O equals new object, you know. We're not doing that. We want a broken program just so you can see what it's like. All right, so private static. So let's make another method. So private static method. Let's make it a float. Divide floats. So this is gonna call. It's gonna do a float f1, float f2. It's just gonna divide two floats together. Return f1 over f2. All right, so let's call that. So sysout divide floats. Now let's pretend we don't know math and just do whatever number and divide it by 0. So let's see what happens. Now with the float, what that happens is it creates infinity. Oh, if we were saying working with an integer, and we're doing that, will get an exception. It's an arithmetic exception, divide by 0. You cannot divide by 0. So now let's make it so that that happens with the float too. So let's actually make a try catch. Or not yet, actually. Let's give it a throws statement. So throws arithmetic exception. So even if we were to do a try catch, throws arithmetic exception, let's just sysout divide floats to 0.14 or 0.14159f and then just do 0. It actually will still be infinity. Now, even though we told it that it can throw this exception, it still doesn't throw the exception because we have to give it a condition that if this is going to happen, let's throw the exception so that we can tell the programmer that something went wrong. So let's do if f2 is equal to 0, throw new, because it's an object, arithmetic exception. All right, and then do else. So if something went right, it's going to print out if the second number is 0, it's going to throw this. If it's not 0, it's going to return the actual value. So as you can do that, now nothing happens because we didn't handle the exception. So let's go ahead and handle the exception. e.print stack trace. All right, so as you remember, I said that that red text was the most helpful thing. But here we got rid of the red text, so that's not very helpful. So this is how you get that red text back. Print stack trace. So let's go ahead and run this, and just how whatever. Sometimes it runs a little weirdly. Here we go. This is correct. So, that's a little weird. This doesn't really mean anything to me. Just arithmetic exception. That's a little general, don't you think? So let's go ahead and make a string, and let's do cannot divide by 0. So now this will give you, if you remember with the ints, there was a little divide by 0. This will do the same thing, cannot divide by 0. So if you give it a string here, it will actually give you a little message detailing the exception when you have a throw. So throws means that you're saying this could go wrong. Throw means that something went wrong, and you're telling it exactly what went wrong, so that it doesn't even try to do this wrong thing. So as you can see, and stack trace gives us back that nice little red text. But this does go to the throw statement, but you can easily see f2 is equal to 0. Oh, okay, that's what made it throw. So that's it on exception handling. Next video will be on, I believe, multi-threading, which is a very, very important concept. Let me just make sure the audio didn't mess up. All right, it didn't. All right, awesome. So if you have any questions, just come up to me. Again, this is barely scratching the surface of exception handling. But this is the important thing. This is what you need to know for exception handling. You can have a little bit more control with exception handling. You can have a finally block, all this really interesting stuff. But that is not important right now. Or it is important right now, but you don't need to learn it right now. You can learn it on your own. So so that's it. So have a good day and bye.